Hi, and welcome back to yet another exciting week of the Lazy Money Game. In this week's episode, I will demonstrate a new feature which I have discovered on YouTube, which will hopefully make it easier for you to get an overview of the episodes which you're watching on this channel. I admit that maybe it is just me as a creator who find this as a really awesome new feature, but please let me know in the comment section down below if you think this is something that will be beneficial to you. Because my personal goal is to make the knowledge that I have available as fast as possible and as relevant as possible, so you can go and find exactly what I can contribute with to you in the fastest and the shortest time. And afterwards, we will of course take a closer look at my portfolio and see what has happened within this week. So, without further hesitation, let me show you this new feature on YouTube. So to all my subscribers, meaning you who is watching this episode, YouTube have added a new feature for the timeline. So I have added timelines to all my videos, as you know, but what they have done is they have made an upgrade. So if you click the arrow over here, then it will show all the chapters over here, giving you a much better overview. So for instance, on episode 36, which I'm showing here, then you can say, oh, I only want to see the part on how to invest in a low interest rate environment. Then I click that and then it jumps directly to that. But for instance, if you're more interested in a portfolio update, then you click that part. So hopefully this new feature can save you some time and you can click and see only the information within my episodes which you find relevant. If we then go to a portfolio update, then we can start by seeing that there's a green circle for this week's episode, meaning that the portfolio is up in value compared to last week. We can see that the cost base has not increased, meaning I have not invested anything within this week. If we then go to the portfolio value, we can see that I'm up $3,200 compared to last week. So that is actually quite a big increase, and it is not too surprising since we have had a lot of good days in the market in this week. And everyone who has been following the news this week will know what has caused this turbulence in the market, because the US election is of course what has caused this. And it was a bit surprising for me to see, no matter who was going to win the election, we saw that the stock market increased in value. I would have expected that the stocks would increase if you knew who was going to win. But since the market increased quite a lot on Wednesday and Thursday, it was quite surprising to me, because there we didn't have a clear result. And some will argue that we actually still not have a clear result due to fake news and stuff like that. I'm not going to go into a discussion about that. But what I'm seeing is that Mr. Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. So let me elaborate a bit on why I think it was so confusing that we saw that the stock market increased Wednesday and Thursday. I mean, I can understand if some sectors are increasing, if you feel more certain that one candidate will win instead of the other, since they have so different views on which sectors that they would like to invest in with the public or the governmental budget. So for instance, if one candidate wants to invest in a lot of oil, then it makes sense that oil stocks go up. And if you have another candidate who is much more into sustainable energy, then it makes sense that the sustainable energy stocks goes up in value. But that was not what we saw. We saw the market as a whole was increasing. So that was really surprising for me. So if we look closer at the movements within the portfolio, then we can see a stock like AbbVie has increased more than 9% in value within this week. This is not too surprising, since they had a good quarterly result and we saw that they increased the dividend with more than 10%. This is really some of the news that the investors like to see, so it's not really surprising. On the contrary, you can go and take a closer look at Carnival Corporations, for instance. I'm still down close to 70%. Well, the cruise line business is currently struggling a lot. They cannot sail their ships, so they are not really making any money. And when they are going to do so really depends on the current situation. So unless we find a vaccine or they are allowed to sail and people are willing to sail with them, then I don't expect to see this stock increase in value. But the fundamentals of the business, if they start sailing again, I believe that they will be able to recover. It might take 3, 4 or 5 years, but I still think it makes sense for me to keep holding on to this company. If we then turn to the most important tab, the dividends tab, then we can see that I have received more than $124 within this week. I'm really happy about that, because that can actually pay for all my groceries within a single week. And the 5 companies which I have received dividends from is AT&T, Verizon, LTC, JP Morgan and CVS Health Corp. If we then continue to some more company specific news, then we can see that Cardinal Health have missed their GAAP earnings per share by $1.66, but we see that they have beaten the revenue estimate by 930 million, meaning that they are up 4.6% year to date. And more importantly, they have adjusted their outlook for earnings per share, so they have increased the estimate interval from $5.25 to $5.65 to $5.65 and $5.95 versus the consensus of $5.48. So this is also really positive news as an investor, so it was not too surprising to see that the share increased in value. And while we are talking on Cardinal Health, they also released this dividend news that they will keep a dividend which is in line with previous, so I will continue to receive my dividend from this company. If we then turn to questions from the audience, then I will do it a bit differently than I usually do, because for this week I have actually not received a question for this, but since we have seen in Denmark that more and more banks are lowering the amount of money that you can have on your account before you have to start paying a negative interest rate, then I think more people would be interested in knowing, or at least aligning their expectations on how to invest in a low interest rate environment, as you can see in this episode 36. So in Denmark, previously there was a lot of banks where you were allowed to have $750,000 before you would have to pay negative interest rates, but now some banks have lowered that down to $250,000 or even down to $100,000. Hence, I think it becomes more relevant, and at the same time you can try out this new feature and go and just check exactly what is relevant for you. If we then continue with questions from the audience, then the video from last week's episode, how Brexit impact Revolut trading. First of all, I'm really humble and happy to see that more than 500 people has viewed this video, but more importantly that there has been a lot of questions down below. So for instance, what type of complaints will you see for the Financial Ombudsman service? So I've actually spent quite a lot of my time within this week to try and answer some of these questions. So I have updated my description from last week, so you can go and take a closer look at some of these answers as well, just to inform you. So that actually sums it up for yet another exciting week of the Lazy Money Game. I know that this episode is rather short compared to some of the other episodes, but I deliberately chose not to focus more on the US election, or for instance that Berkshire Hathaway has done a tremendous amount of buybacks, simply because I thought my time was better spent trying to do more research and answer some of the questions I have received throughout the week about how Brexit affect trading on Revolut. And if you like that type of content, then please consider giving me a like or leave a comment down below, and then I will of course try and keep you posted as soon as I know more. So until I see you next Sunday, bye!